This is a story about Aurora, who was frustrated by her husband's uninterested attitude. As a result, she decides that some changes are necessary and plans to use Valentine's Day as an opportunity to get back on good terms with her husband. On Valentine's Day, an unexpected person visits the cake shop where Aurora works. It was her husband, who turned pale when he saw Aurora, and his affair partner, who was smiling and choosing a cake without noticing anything. Aurora serves both of them with a big smile and hands the cake to her husband and the woman. What will Aurora's reaction be to her husband, who is sitting on his knees waiting for her at home? Let's see to find out. My husband came to the cake shop where I work on Valentine's Day with his affair partner. I recommended a chocolate cake to my pale-faced husband. We've been married for 5 years, but I feel like our marriage is deteriorating fast. We don't have any big fights, but it seems like my husband is no longer interested in me. I didn't expect this kind of relationship after only 5 years, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to get along, just the two of us. We got married 2 years after we started dating, so it's not like we were together for a long time. It's true that after 7 years together, you get used to a lot of things and become less reserved. But still, there's a big difference between being together because you like each other and when you don't show any interest in the other person. I have feelings for my husband, and I don't regret having married him, but I'm beginning to think that his attitude lately is a bit too harsh. Even when we have a conversation, I often feel like he is not listening and doesn't seem to be interested in what I'm thinking at all. In fact, when I want him to listen to me, he even acts bothersome. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about myself all the time. I listen to my husband complain about his work, and I leave him alone when he seems tired. That's why I'm kind of frustrated that he doesn't listen to me at all. So I said to my husband, "You've been kind of cold lately, haven't you? You're listening to me like me talking is a bother."
"I don't think it's bothersome, but it's bothersome that you ask me like that."
"Well, you are cold after all."
"I don't think so. I'm always listening to what you have to say."
"I'm not sure what you mean by that, but it's obvious you're not listening. When you reply, it's blunt, or worse, you just ignore me."
"That's only when I'm tired or doing something else."
"It's usually when you're playing some game on your phone."
"Whatever it is, I'm listening to you. See, we're having a conversation right now."
"Yeah, but..." It had the opposite effect on me, so after this little fight, we never talked about it. In fact, we don't talk much anymore. I guess I'll have to do something about that. One thing I'm thinking about right now is that I'm going to make a fresh start this Valentine's Day. I know it sounds a bit childish, but it's been a while since I've done anything for Valentine's Day. My husband forgets to give me anything, so I've gradually stopped giving it to him. But this year, I'm thinking of giving a gift that doesn't ask for anything in return as a token of my gratitude. I don't like the idea of things being awkward like this, so I thought I'd try to be a little more forthcoming. Well, I don't know if I'll get the response I'm hoping for, but I thought it might be stimulating to take some action once in a while. I don't know if I'll succeed, but... Aurora seems to be trying to change the situation in a positive way. Seeing Aurora's positive attitude, I honestly felt like cheering her on. And so Valentine's Day came by. Valentine's Day. On that day, I was working at a cake shop at the request of a friend. It seems that cakes sell surprisingly well on Valentine's Day, and they were short on staff or something. So I was put in charge of the cash register because I could do nothing but sell cakes. Then an unexpected person came into the store. It was my husband, and a woman I didn't know. I knew right away that he was cheating on me, because they walked in arm in arm, looking like they were more than friends. My husband is an only child, and I was told that he has no female cousins, so I was certain that he was having an affair. He didn't seem to notice at first, but the moment he laid eyes on me, he stiffened.
"Why are you here?"
I think it came out of his mouth before he could even think about it. The woman next to him was so surprised to see him like that. "Do you know her?" But I just looked at her like I didn't know what she was talking about. "I think you've got the wrong person. So what kind of cake are you looking for?" My husband looked pale, but the woman didn't notice. Do you have any recommendations? I want to give him a cake for Valentine's Day. She asked me with a big smile on her face. To that, I gave her a big smile and replied, Then I recommend this chocolate cake. The woman's eyes lit up with delight. That looks delicious! Then I'll have 2 of these, please. Yes, ma'am. I continued to smile, pretended not to notice my husband's confusion, and quickly settled the bill and had him leave the store. Of course, after they both walked out of the store, I instantly went back to a straight face. I didn't talk about it to anyone after that, and I finished the work I had left to do and went home. When I went to the living room, my husband had already returned, and for some reason, he was sitting on his knees waiting for me. I ignored him and talked to him as if nothing happened. Working in a cake shop is pretty fun. I even got a souvenir.
That's great.
My husband was puzzled by my strangely cheerful tone and was watching how I was going to go about the conversation. But I didn't mention anything on what he was expecting. It wasn't because I wasn't scared. It was just that I had thought through the whole thing and decided that this was the best move. How was the chocolate cake I recommended to you? You already ate it, didn't you?
Yes, I ate it. It was delicious.
Right? I got to taste it too, and it was delicious. I guess he thought it was weird that I was smiling all the time, that this time he started talking to me.
You know, about what happened today.
Then I finally decided to address the main issue. Oh, about today. Your affair partner is beautiful. Well, for what she did, she's an a-hole, though. So this means we're getting a divorce now, right? I'll be requesting alimony, so please make sure to tell that woman, too. My husband just stared at me, growing more pale. I never said this to test my husband. I decided to divorce him the moment I found out that he had been cheating on me. The fact that I had been trying so hard to strengthen our bond as a married couple made me feel like an idiot. I just wanted to get a divorce. Of course I was hurt, and I really wanted to start crying. But I didn't want to show my weakness to such a lousy person. So I kept a smile on my face the whole time. I wanted to show him that I could leave him at any time. But he had no way of knowing what I was really thinking, so he was very confused.
No, wait a minute. Isn't it too early to talk about divorce? I'm sorry I cheated on you. I'm deeply sorry about that. That's why I left her. I care about you. And only you, Aurora.
He said something cheap like that. You don't have to apologize. It's my fault for not realizing that you're the kind of person who would cheat on me. It's interesting that you talked about your breakup while eating such delicious chocolate cake. Whatever you two do from now on, do as you please. I'll make sure you get alimony, and I won't call off the divorce. When I told him this, he stood up and tried to persuade me.
I told you I don't want a divorce. I don't want to end things here with you, Aurora. I've left her for good. I'll answer any questions you want to ask, so please, forgive me.
Seeing my husband like that, I felt my love for him waning more and more. For good? Once you cheat on your wife, you've completely lost my trust.
I understand that, but...
I don't care if you end it or not. I don't have any questions I want to ask you. I don't want to get hurt even more. So do you agree to the divorce? I'm going home to my parents tomorrow. When I said this, my husband put his forehead to the floor.
Aurora, please. Please forgive me. I will never betray you again. I really, truly promise.
I was so disgusted, so I said something harsh to him. When you're married to someone and you betray them even once, isn't that the end? Promises are easy to say, but impossible to believe in this situation, right? I won't trust you even if you do that, and I'm not ready to forgive you either. So don't waste your time. As long as you divorce me and give me alimony, that's all that matters.
Please don't say that. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. So, please.
Yeah, it's obviously all your fault, and you should be sorry. But I don't trust your words, even if you say you're sorry, so I'm asking you to show it by divorcing me and paying me alimony. Do you understand? My husband started crying when I said all this. How is it possible for the one who cheated on his wife to cry? The feelings I felt when I saw my husband crying in front of me, I truly couldn't understand why he was crying. How can you play the victim after cheating on your wife?
Could you at least listen to me for a second?
He even said that to me in tears. Why should I listen to someone who cheated on me? I was frustrated, and my will to divorce became even stronger. It's ironic that he used to be so uninterested in what I had to say, but now the tables have turned. Maybe I was protecting myself from further damage by deciding to divorce him so easily. But now, I have no regrets about requesting the divorce. In fact, I'm glad I did it right away. After seeing my husband like that, I had no intention of being with him anymore. That's why I no longer listened to his words and stayed in my room. I didn't seem to listen at all, so he must have realized that he wouldn't be able to talk to me that day, and no longer pestered me that day. The next day, I left the house while my husband was at work. I came back to my parents' house, but the divorce wasn't finalized yet. My parents were surprised to hear my story. They said my husband didn't seem like the kind of person who would have an affair. I married him because I thought he wouldn't do such a thing. I got a message from my husband, probably after finishing his work.
Did you really go home to your parents' place? I'll be there on my next day off so we can talk again then.
I never responded to any of his messages since we had nothing to talk about. The husband is trying his best to show remorse, but Aurora's will to divorce seems to be firm. I guess his fate was sealed when he cheated on her. I wonder if she and her husband will ever be able to come to an agreement. A few days later, my husband came to my parents' house with a straight look on his face, like he had a strong will. It was like it showed that he was determined to go home with me. Well, I shattered that idea early on. My parents, being considerate, went out, so I sat down with my husband again, face to face.
Aurora, I'm so sorry.
I handed him the divorce papers at the same time he bowed his head. Thank God you're here. Can you fill this out for me? I held out a pen, and sure enough, he froze.
What? No, I came here today to discuss...
And I told you I have nothing to say. That's why I didn't reply. I just got the divorce papers yesterday, so I'm glad you came by today. It saves me the trouble of mailing them, so just go ahead and write them down. When I rushed him, he looked very sad.
Aurora, do you really want a divorce? We've been together for 7 years. I only want to be with you, and only you from now on. That's why we got married, and I don't want this to be the end.
That's what he said, so I gave him another good argument. You can think that you want to be with me all you want, but I'm the one who decides that, okay? I'm not going to let the person who cheated on me do what he wants. Am I? And by the way, I'm never going to say yes. I'm not going to change my mind about the divorce. If you won't sign it now, will you leave? I was so calm that he panicked.
What's wrong, Aurora? You weren't so cold before. You used to listen to me all the time. So why don't you listen to me when we have something important to talk about?
He asked me something so obvious. I've only ever wanted to listen to you because I liked you. How could I possibly want to listen to you when you cheated on me and betrayed me? I have every right to be angry at you for what you did. And if you thought you could be nice to me after I found out about your affair, how stupid do you think I am?
I'm not saying that you're stupid. I just want you to know how sorry I am.
As I told you before I left, nothing you say in words means anything to me. I told you that I want you to show me how sorry you are in a visible way, right? Or were you not listening to me again?
I was listening, but I don't want a divorce.
If you don't want a divorce so badly, why did you cheat on me? Do you think I would forgive you? I don't want to be betrayed and cry myself to sleep. I'd rather leave than be with someone I can trust. If you say you're truly sorry, shouldn't you respect my wishes?
That's true, but...
I really have nothing more to say to you. I can only say the same thing, and it's a waste of time. Do you want to sign now and talk about the division of property and alimony, or do you want to just leave without showing any remorse? I pushed him into a corner, and he finally relented.
Okay. If you insist, I'll agree to divorce.
He nodded and looked as if he had given up on everything. I was relieved that it worked out, and I was able to get him to sign the divorce papers. Then, we had a thorough discussion about the division of property and alimony. After all that was said and done, "I'll divorce you and pay you alimony, but I don't want this to be over. Please don't tell me you'll never see me again. I want you to give me one more chance. I'll definitely make you like me again." My husband was still saying such things after all that talk. Will you stop being so smug? I'm not the kind of woman who would ever choose a lousy man like you again. Thanks for signing the papers. Now get out. I shushed him up like that. It was like a weight was put off my shoulders. I'd gotten my revenge for being cheated on. The other woman is going to be contacted about the alimony. Well, I'll leave that to my lawyer. I'm just glad to be free from all my worries. I'll never forget this Valentine's Day. I'm sure it was very bitter for my husband as it was for me. I hope he remembers me every year from now on and regrets it for the rest of his life. I already have no regrets, and I don't think I'll ever regret our divorce. I'm just relieved that it all came to an end so early. The longer it dragged on, the deeper my wounds would have become. Thank you for listening to the end.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread. hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.